Music bed. Music bed.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Deadbirds Discussion, the brand new St. Louis Cardinals podcast brought to you by www.showmefootball.com. And today I'm joined by our podcast producer, Connor, and supreme Deadbirds fan, Braden Dowers, or at ShowMeBaseball on Twitter. Braden, say what's up.
Hello, everybody. Braden. I am definitely a major Deadbirds fan, and I'm excited to talk some baseball today.
Braden, do I have to explain it, or do you want to explain to them why we're calling them the Deadbirds?
I guess I can take hold of this. You can give your own explanation too. But the Deadbirds, basically, the name comes from the Cardinals are basically just dead at this point. They suck. They've been horrible this year. They haven't really lived up to expectations. They haven't won a World Series since 2011, and that's largely credited to John Mozeliak's failure as the general manager and president of baseball operations.
Yeah, I mean, Deadbirds is a term that became popular thanks to someone that we know that just started calling them the Deadbirds, caught on with us quickly, and now it's just kind of a running joke. That's what I always call the Cardinals. But anyway, I mean, it's a perfect name considering the current climate we're in with the Deadbirds because they're not very good. So it's a fitting name. And, you know, they keep kind of hovering around 500 right now. And the scary thing is, you see at the trade deadline, Cubs weren't too far off from the Cardinals record-wise, and they just went ahead and sold everybody. And the Cardinals acquire two pitchers, two of them that really, I don't think moved the needle that much. But Braden, I want to get your take on the additions of J.A. Happ and John Lester at the trade deadline.
Starting off with Happ, this was by far the worst move that was made at the deadline in total, not just by the Deadbirds, by the entire MLB landscape. We bought J.A. Happ for John Gant. John Gant was a starter earlier in the year, and his first 10 starts, he had an ERA like under 2 and was doing really good, but his last 5 or 6 starts, he got blown up and they moved him back to the bullpen. And we sold him for J.A. Happ, who has had 19 starts and had a 6.77 ERA or something absurd like that in Minnesota. And we traded John Gant, who's worked decently in the bullpen, for Happ. And we gave up a prospect, a left-handed reliever who had a sub-3 ERA in Palm Beach and Double-A Springfield. So giving up a prospect and John Gant to get somebody objectively worse than John Gant, just to eat up innings for Oviedo and Woodford so that they can develop in AAA, is not something that they should have done. It's not a move that I like at all. And then the Lester trade, I actually liked it a lot, even though he has a 5.02 ERA. He's dealt with injuries this year. But he's been a solid pitcher in the past. I know I've seen him go up against the Deadbirds many times in the mid-2000s with that Cubs dynasty. It's going to be definitely weird rooting for Lester. I know he makes his first start on Tuesday against the Braves. But having him he's going to be able to actually eat up those innings so that Oviedo and Woodford can develop. And once we get a healthy Flaherty and Michaelis, that rotation is going to look decently nice with Flaherty, Wainwright, Kim, and then you got about 3 starting pitchers with Happ, LeBlanc, and Lester fighting for that 5 spot. And that actually gives us solid depth. So maybe if you move Happ into a bullpen role, he's okay, but definitely the addition of Lester I like.
Yeah, I made fun of the Lester edition at first just because I wanted so badly to make fun of the Cardinals for having a bad deadline. However, I am fond of Lester because of his days with the Red Sox. He was really good. And I mean, he's your fourth or fifth starter in the rotation. That's completely fine.
Yeah.
Really,
You're not
though,
expecting to get much out of him.
really though, the Cardinals, their pitching staff, at least with the starting rotation at this point, depends on if they can get healthy or not, because they're actually not bad. They're probably top half of the league when healthy. Michaelis, Flaherty, all those guys, but they just haven't been healthy at all.
Yeah, Kim and Wainwright have been excellent so far, picking up for Flaherty and Michaelis going down this year. Michaelis has not been able. He made one start and he got re-injured. But Flaherty, before he got hurt, he had a little bit of a shaky start with the first game though. But he was very dominant all throughout April and May, and up until June when he got hurt in that Dodgers game, swinging the bat. And Michaelis threw solid 5 innings against the Cubs in his first start back. If he can actually stay healthy, he's definitely a solid number 2. And one of the names that you forgot to mention was Dakota Hudson, who's lost the entire season to Tommy John surgery. And I've heard murmurs back in like May, June, that he might be able to come back later in the year, September, maybe help in the bullpen. Like if we somehow magically go on a playoff run, Dakota Hudson could be there in the bullpen to help us out. But he's also another name that we lost. But with Wainwright, Kim, they've really picked up the slack. And if you get a healthy Flaherty, you got a solid 1-2-3 combo, even though it's pretty unconventional.
Yeah, however, I do want to ask you, assuming the Cardinals pitching gets back up to par, do you think it changes much about the team and how well they can do? Because really, yeah, their pitching has been shaky with all the injuries, but also they're towards the bottom of the league in runs per game. Their offense, it's very hit or miss, even though despite the fact that they have Goldschmidt, Arenado, Harrison Bader, who's come on as of lately. Their offense just continues to struggle. They're currently ranked 26th out of 30 in runs per game. So, what do you think is the issue there? And do you think that that issue with them is enough to outweigh any sort of good pitching that they can get back?
The issue with the batting order and hitting just in general is Jeff Albert, the hitting coach, who has been absolutely atrocious in his tenure in St. Louis. He is not they wanted to bring in major philosophical changes to how we viewed hitting, and it has not gone well at all with any of the current players with any of the players before the Jeff Albert era and any of the players that we brought in for the Jeff Albert era. Everybody's hitting stats have gotten worse, arguably. And then I think the biggest issue is with Mike Schilt and how he's constructing the lineup. You got Harrison Bader with an OPS plus of over which is 136 right now, and he has an on-base percentage of 346, which is literally the highest on the team, yet he's batting 6th. He came back from injury in that Colorado series, and he's absolutely mashed since early July when he came back. Yet we're still hitting him behind Yadier Molina, who hasn't had an extra base hit in over 60 at-bats. So it makes no sense to have Molina batting 5th and then having Bader hitting 6th or 7th. He needs to be a top-of-the-lineup hitter because Carlson obviously was a lot better in that 2 spot when Edman was producing much better as the 1, but Edman's kind of been shaky over the last month and a half. But I think if you put Bader up in that leadoff spot and you put Carlson in the 2 and you just kind of shift everybody down again, put Goldschmidt in the 3, Arenado in the 4, O'Neill, who has really come on strong this year, if you put him in the 5, I think you got a pretty solid lineup. Also, the play of Paul DeJong has to improve. He's been a little bit better as of recently. He went on a little bit of a hot streak right after the All-Star break, but he's still been extremely disappointing this year, and it's definitely a position I think Mozeliak wants and is going to address in the offseason.
And it's really unfortunate because Harrison Bader becoming a reliable hitter is something everyone wanted, and it's such a big storyline. Like, it's a really underrated storyline, but the whole thing has just been overshadowed by the fact that the Cardinals have been terrible outside of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
But
sure.
everyone wanted to see out of him.
Yeah. Bader for sure has been the biggest surprise of the season. Bader's been the biggest surprise of the season. O'Neill has been really solid as well. He had a very big hot streak when he came back from injury in that Arizona series. The entire outfield, that was the biggest question mark on the entire Cardinal roster. Everybody was saying, like, if the Cardinals outfield's going to be good, then they're going to be a World Series contender. That's kind of what the narrative felt like, but here we are. The Cardinals outfield has been superb with Carlson coming on, having a solid little season with an OPS or with an on-base percentage of 377, and he's hitting above league average. O'Neill has been good, and then Bader's been really good. And this is like the last couple weeks. This is the first time that we've seen the outfield fully healthy, and we've been better, especially coming up. I think the next 4 series we're playing teams all under 500. We play like 2 series against the Royals, I believe a series against the Pirates, and a series against the Braves. So I think playing them is going to help. If we can go on a run there, maybe you see them inching at a wild card spot or even maybe back into the division. But it's really just a matter of the pitching staff getting healthy, I think.
Yeah, I'd say at this point that's pretty much their best bet to make any sort of run to end the season. But I'm going to ask about Mike Shildt with you because I've seen a lot of hate on Mike Shildt, and I've also seen a lot of Mike Shildt is getting dealt a bad hand. But if I'm being honest, Mike Shildt currently, I feel like the vibe around him is eerily similar to Mike Matheny's exit a couple years ago. Like, the team just really is struggling to rally, just a lot of questionable decisions, and just a poor record. It seems I'm not saying Shildt is going to be fired, but like you're seeing at this point, like fans are actually calling for Schilt's head. But I'll ask you what your opinion is on Schilt's managing job this year so far.
I think you have to look back to 2019. He got the Manager of the Year award, and that's what Mo Zaylock is going to use as justification to keep Shildt around for any longer, is because he won the prestigious Manager of the Year award, which he definitely didn't deserve because he's not that great of a manager. Anybody in the entire Matheny situation that was going on, literally anybody would have succeeded being the manager of that team besides Mike Matheny because nobody liked him anymore. He had lost the locker room. So Shildt just coming in off the bench, being the interim coach, they should have left that interim tag on him because anybody would have done better than Matheny at that point. And then this year, I really look back to the game against the Cubs. We won 3 out of 4 against the Cubs. Our last time that we ever saw Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, and Javier Baez, that core. We won that series. But I look back to that second game, and it is just a pitiful mess of management. We were up 6-1 going into the 9th inning, and he puts in Luis Garcia to save the game, or not to save the game, but to close out the final 3 outs in the top of the 9th. And Garcia completely blows it. Then Shildt puts in Reyes when we're up like 6-3, bases loaded, no outs. Reyes doesn't get through it. I think that was his first career blown save. And then they put Gallegos in, and Gallegos limits the damage, and then we lose because Craig Kimbrell throws a perfect scoreless 9th inning. And then Shildt was asked in the press conference after that by one of the reporters what his thinking was in that situation. And Shildt took it as a personal insult. And it wasn't even that hard of a question. Like, usually the media has just been throwing Shildt softball questions all season, in the 2020 COVID year as well, in 2019. He's just been throwing softball questions. The St. Louis media has been particularly pretty soft against him. But he gets asked one challenging question, and Shildt had basically just a meltdown. He asked the reporter, I think it was a guy from ESPN, I forget his name, but he was asking Schilt
Brandon Kiley, he's on 101.
Yeah. But he asked him what Schilt was thinking, and Schilt responded to him, "What would you have done?" And then he started saying that we can't use Reyes and Gallegos every night, but he used Reyes and Gallegos in that same inning. He thought that putting in Garcia to close out the game was the right decision, even though Garcia had like a 27 ERA going into that game in one appearance, because he was horrible against the Cubs in one relief appearance prior. And Schilt doubled down on it, and it was just kind of like that's when I completely lost any faith in Mike Schilt as the manager, because if he can't handle one challenging question and he's asking reporters what he should do as a manager, that shows a clear issue on the team.
Yeah, it's because like I said, Brandon Kiley from 101.1 ESPN used to be on the radio in Kansas City, and then he moved to STL to cover the Cardinals, and he's like a really nice dude. Like I know for a fact he wasn't like trying to go after or Schilt or anything like that. Like he wasn't trying to be, a dick to him. He was just asking him a question, then Schilt asks him a question, and then like basically humiliates him for answering the question when that's what he asked for. It was embarrassing from Schilt. But Arenado only fixed one of many problems with the team. So it was unfortunate. Now, I will say that a lot of it has been injuries, so unforeseen circumstances that have affected the Deadbirds season. But at this point, what would you say the Deadbirds have to do in order for it to be considered a salvage?
Salvageable,
for lack of a better term.
A salvageable season is obviously going to be winning the division or just making the playoffs at all. Arenado expected us to be buyers at the deadline. We weren't really buyers. We bought two mediocre arms, or one below average arm, one mediocre arm. The Brewers went ahead. They traded for Willy Adames early in the year when they realized that shortstop was a glaring hole on that team. Then they traded for Eduardo Escobar. So they made the moves that they needed to make. They also got Yelich in the outfield, and Omar Narvaez has taken a huge step. So we're going to have to catch up with the three-headed monster of that pitching staff as well. And I think getting Flaherty, Michaelis, Wainwright, Kim healthy, or getting Flaherty and Michaelis healthy along with Kim and Wainwright, getting all of that, the pitching staff has to be solid. It has to continue to trend in the direction that it's been going. I know that Flaherty and Michaelis both made rehab starts. I think Flaherty might make one more, so will Michaelis, and then they should.
Sorry about that, everyone. A little bit of technical difficulties there because our podcast producer, Connor, isn't too bright. But we're back and picking up where we left off. Basically, we were just summarizing the fact that, what would it take for Cardinals season to be considered salvaged? But, I think at this point, like, they got to try to. I mean, they're third in the division? That's right.
Yeah, I think they're right behind the Reds.
Yeah, and now with the Cubs basically, waving the white flag, there's a bigger hole there, for them to climb up. And there's a path to making the playoffs and maybe salvaging the season. Do I think it's going to happen? No. And if it doesn't, Braden, what changes do you think need to be made? And changes obviously come with adding players to the team. What players would you like to see the Deadbirds go after this offseason? Do you think that the Wallets need to sell?
Okay, so to first start off, kind of to salvage the season, they're going to have to catch up to the Brewers, and they're going to have to overtake the Reds. Looking at their schedule in August, they kind of have a cakewalk. They have like one series against the Brewers, and I think everybody else is under 500 that we play in the month of August. So it's going to be, we're going to have to capitalize on playing bad teams. Obviously, having a healthy pitching staff, and it's just going to take beating the Brewers, beating the good teams, and making sure to take advantage of beating the bad teams like the Royals, Pirates. I think we play like 2 or 3 more series against the Cubs, so we're gonna have to beat up on them as well. Winning games against the Reds because they've been kind of a surprise. I expected them to do good, but I didn't expect them to be this good, and to the point where they're now only 4.5 games back of the Padres and for the wild card spot, and the Padres could be without Tatis for the rest of the year. And then moving on to what additions I'd like to see them make in the offseason, and the additions that I think they will make. So we're going to have around $80 million or $60 to $80 million in free cap space. Not really cap space, but just $80 million free from the payroll, because we're going to be able to buy out of Carlos Martinez's contract, who was horrible this year. Matt Carpenter, I think we are also going to be able to buy out of his contract. We don't have Andrew Miller's contract anymore, and I believe there's one more that we're going to be able to get rid of.
Fowler.
Yes, Dexter Fowler, thank you. Because we're paying the majority of his contract for the Angels. So that's going to free up $60 million plus in room. And then the Rockies, another notable free agent from there, Trevor Story. They didn't sell him at the deadline. He's going to become a free agent. There is no way Javier Baez re-signs with the Mets, so he's going to be a free agent. I think the biggest acquisition the Cardinals need to make in the offseason is at shortstop. Paul DeJong, like I said earlier, has been pretty disappointing. He's only batting .201 and has 14 home runs, which is 4th on the team, but you can't be putting up batting average numbers of .201, especially when you're expected to be the starting everyday shortstop. He's also subpar, a little bit above average at defensively. But if you're able to go out and get Trevor Story, and then you're able to trade Paul DeJong for a better pitcher, for sure. Yadier Molina, also kind of a question mark. You wonder if you want to give Andrew Knizner more playing time. His numbers right now probably don't show that. But the thing that I like with Knizner is that he's almost on par with his walks and strikeouts. He has 15 walks and only 23 strikeouts. And while he's only hitting 192, he has an on-base percentage of .310. So I'd like to give Knizner more playing time. You also got Ivan Herrera in the minors, who hasn't been hitting well this year, but he's stellar defensively. So you might want to look into catcher, but if Molina is still going to be there, I definitely give Molina the spot. Also, keeping Wainwright on that team, keeping like just that duo, I think that's really good for the locker room. But you don't give Yadi as big of a role as he's expecting, because I don't know why we continue to bat him 5th every day. Kind of just like philosophical changes again in the way that we view hitting. Just drop Molina down in the order, please. That will win us exponentially more games. I think Schilt can manage a winning team for sure. With the addition of Trevor Story, I think you have one of the best infields in the league. And then if you have that outfield emerging even more with Bader, O'Neill, and Carlson, they're only going to get better. They're all young. They're all trending upwards. If they trend upwards even more going into next year, that's going to be stellar. You get a full healthy season of Flaherty, Michaelis, Hudson, Wainwright, and then if you're able to re-sign Kim as well, that would be a really good starting 5. And if you aren't able to go get Kim, go out and get a bigger name, or you can roll with Alex Reyes, who's been stellar out of the bullpen this year, unless you just want to leave the 3-headed monster of Gallegos, Reyes, and Genesis Cabrera, who's been a little bit shaky recently, but still pretty solid. Wade LeBlanc, also a nice little DFA addition. I think it was TJ McFarland as well. Those are 2 names that I've liked this season. Like, if we retain them, I wouldn't be mad. I think that definitely makes the team better. That's just kind of my take on how to get the Cardinals into a better position next year. Is definitely Trevor Story, maybe a bullpen arm, and a little bit. Definitely a bench bat, because Matt Carpenter has been horrible off the bench. Edmundo Sosa has been okay. Knizner's been solid. Jose Rondon is okay. Lars Nootbaar he needs to develop more. And then John Nagowski, we DFA'd, and now he's been absolutely insane on the Pirates, which I saw coming personally.
Yeah, a lot of stuff to cover there. So I definitely think the Cardinals' perfect offseason would include signing Trevor Story, especially because of the Nolan Arenado connection there. I definitely think it's something that is worth monitoring. And then, like you said, a perfect situation would to be get Story and then trade DeJong since he would become expendable for something else of value at another position of need. That's really where you have to go. And then getting Molina at this point, he kind of reminds me of like Drew Brees in his last few years with the Saints that we saw just recently. It's like everyone loves him because he's Drew Brees. Everyone loves Molina because he's Molina, but like he's kind of starting to become a liability.
For sure.
And then, there's major moves that need to happen this offseason. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we've seen the lack of urgency from the front office and ownership now show up in the attendance numbers. Fans aren't showing up to games anymore. In the past, fans would show up to the games even if the Cardinals were being a little bit disappointing. But now that it's multiple years in a row of just mediocre baseball and the front office, being very stubborn and unwilling to spend big with resources in order to get the players to make this team a World Series contender, fans are starting to get sick of it. And as we saw, there were maybe like 12,000 fans for the Twins game the other night. Like, that's pathetic.
Especially for a Friday night baseball game where the weather's like beautiful out in St. Louis. Having only like 12 to 20,000 like fans, like max, I think it might have been.
Oh yeah,
like 20,000.
Not to mention,
like when the weather's nice on a Friday night and you're not getting fans for a Cardinals baseball game, that shows a serious issue. And I think that is going to make the DeWitts. I think they're going to want Mozeliak to start pushing because he's going to start noticing it in his bank account that he's not getting as much money as he usually does.
Yeah, and I mean, heck, they even had Coach Drinkwitz out at the ballpark, and there were only 12K fans there.
I know. Having Drinkwitz at the game, I mean, that should make literally everybody excited in the city of St. Louis.
Yeah, but St. Louis already has a problem supporting Mizzou, but that could be a whole nother podcast. But, I mean, yeah, if the Deadbirds, kind of flame out, if they continue to flame out and the season's just kind of meh, they finish the season around 500, miss the playoffs, then, that's going to be the narrative, everything we just talked about. Like, there's going to have to be big changes. But, I think we hit on almost all the major storylines that are relevant right now. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there unless you had any additional thoughts.
I forgot to answer one thing. Should the DeWitts sell?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, they should. The DeWitts should sell. There you go.
Yeah, they've been pretty cheap. But anyway, I think that'll conclude our first episode of the Deadbirds discussion. So, like I said, everyone, make sure you go check out Braden on Twitter at ShowMeBaseball, and you can check more of our stuff out at ShowMeFootball or ShowMeFootball.com. All we got for today. Peace. Drag out.